All right, everyone, welcome into another props review, touching on the top props for this Monday Night Football slate. Now, just looking at the preview for both the games that we have on Monday Night Football, it's going to be the Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Eagles are favored by 5 points there. It is a 45 or so over and under as well, so decently high scoring. And then the other game as well, which I think we're going to be going in on a little bit more because I kind of like it a little bit more, is the Rams versus the Bengals, a 2-point spread and about 43.5 for the over and under as well. So both pretty appealing games because they are games that are supposed to stay close. That should lead to the predictability on the props that we're going to be on. All right, so let's go ahead and start out with the best props that we are getting available on the boards right now. And this was one that we already have out there. I don't need it. No, I prefer this one to cash. Let's put it that way. I had this one on a 4-slip bet. 3 of them already cashed. This is one that I called out to you guys in a different video. We can see Vegas is valuing this at 6.9, and they are also valuing the over at -138. So about a 54% chance for that one to hit just at that number. He's projected to get 7.1. PrizePicks is giving us the line at 6.5. Now, why is this a good number? Well, when we look at DVP, we can see that Cade Otton is getting one of the best matchups on the week. And I know most of the games are done, but we can see that right there, right? That is going to be an encouraging sign. Then we just look at Cade Otton as a whole here. We can see has been playing a lot of snaps. Like, that's encouraging to us. Decent amount of targets, decent amount of yards. And the biggest takeaway is that last week he was more involved. Okay, and I like that. It was decent matchup there as well. All in all, if they're going to be passing as much as they have been, then I think that is going to be what they're going to have to do. Eagles have been decent against the run. They're going to want to throw the football a little bit more. Cade Otton is a play that makes a lot of sense when he's playing that many snaps. So that is one where I agree with the line that we are getting with the data sheet. And then Rachaad White, obviously this is going to be very much touchdown dependent, but that is what the sportsbook are telling us, is that he's not going to get a touchdown. The projection data likes him a little bit more than the sportsbook, but also not really factoring in a touchdown. And now we will see that with White, his best game really in quite some time was last week against the Chicago Bears. Now we are seeing that is just going to be an easy matchup. This matchup against the Eagles is not going to be as good of one. He did really look by far the best he's ever had in the NFL, I think, in that game. But as we saw with Chicago on Sunday, Isaiah Pacheco was able to really have his way with that defense. And so when we look at this, we can see that this is going to be one of the toughest matchups on the slate in terms of yards per carry, a little bit more production in the passing game, but still not much. So I do agree with the first two that we are getting. So let's take a peek at the next ones we got going. Jalen Hurts for under fantasy score. That's probably one I'm not touching, guys. The Bucs defense has been pretty good, but I could see that being an over. Baker Mayfield for over for fantasy score. I would say if Rachaad White is getting under, and if Cade Otton's getting his over, and if Vegas is right with the lines that they're giving us, then yeah, I can see this one holding up. My issue with Baker is that he hasn't really been a good fantasy quarterback. He's been doing enough to win games for the Bucs. It's just going to be a sweat. Let's put it that way. I would say if you are doing the first two that I mentioned with the Bucs, then this one does make sense and you can apply it that way. Two defenses he's won against that are, pretty poor, and he barely was able to take advantage of those. Like against Minnesota, he said that he knew which defense they were running, and we can say only put up 15.9 DraftKings or PrizePicks points there. Now against the Eagles, who have struggled this year, especially against more over the middle guys, which is why Cade Otton's not a bad play. I don't know. I'd probably just rather stay away from this one. Although if you're trying to do a 5-slip, 6-slip bet for Monday Night Football, then you could go ahead and use this one. From there, let's see what we got. Van Jefferson for under receiving yards. That's an interesting one. We have noticed that Van Jefferson has really been operating out of the slot a lot, and he has not really been productive when everyone else in this offense has been productive. Tutu Atwell, Tyler Higbee, okay. Kyron Williams, obviously Puka Nacua, and Van Jefferson has had chances to really have good games, and he's just dropped them. So it's kind of twofold, right? If he continues to drop passes, obviously he's not going to get there, but the fact that he's an NFL receiver, you don't really expect him to be dropping passes, and you would kind of expect him to have a better game. I totally get why this is going under. Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua both outsnapped him last week. I get that. We're getting about a 53.3% chance for them to hit. Not exactly when you want to go crazy with, but it does make sense. Joe Mixon for over rush attempts at 14.5. That's an okay one. That's more game script dependent. The Bengals are favored to win. Obviously, that's going to really depend on whether or not Joe Burrow is going to be active in that game if they're playing with the lead. But I kind of see the Rams kind of kind of finally figuring it out in this game and getting a W in this one. But we can see, guys, pretty tight slate. We're getting some pretty good edges on the top end, and then from there, it is a very tight slate. We got Jalen Hurts for under 1.5 passing touchdowns in that game as well. Like, very tight in terms of the lines that we are getting. So let's go ahead and touch on kind of my favorite ones. So you guys know I was kind of quietly hyping up Kyren Williams. If the Rams are going to be in this game, I would say that they probably would have to score a touchdown with Kyren Williams. I don't like the fact that we're not getting a single prop on him just yet. I'm very curious to see kind of what line they give for us for him. Like, what his fantasy score prop line is going to be. Be making sure to check this out. If you guys are not 9 to 5 members, $10 a month. Once those props get added in for him, very interesting. I will say Kyren Williams, he's kind of he's a big small back, if you would. Like, he's a small back, but in terms of small backs, he's kind of a bigger build. He has been getting way too much of a workload for us to really trust that. And like, if they keep giving him that workload, eventually he's going to get banged up. And he's really been a guy that's been getting it done inside the tackles as well. And like, I hate to say it, but that could lead to a concussion as well. So we might start to see them pull back his workload a little bit and get someone like Ronnie Rivers a little bit more involved. For those of you guys that don't know, Ronnie Rivers is basically Kyren Williams 2.0. They look exactly the same. Kyren Williams more of a physical back, whereas Ronnie Rivers a little bit more of a make you miss type back, but both the same size, kind of had the same style running as well. It wouldn't be surprising to see him get more involved after the Cam Akers trade. And then for what's worth, like, let's take a peek at Tutu Atwell, see if we're getting any props for him. I would say if we get some receptions props for him, I would like that. He has been someone that has been getting targeted heavily, 9 and 8 targets thus far, and they've been kind of easier receptions, although he looked really good last week. But B, he did outsnap Van Jefferson last week as well. And I think that's both a testament to their faith in Tutu Atwell and also their lack of faith really in Van Jefferson. So yes, I'd probably want a receiving prop. If we get like 5.5 receptions, honestly, I'll probably take that with Tutu Atwell. That's kind of the issue of doing this video on Sunday night as opposed to like maybe Monday morning when we start to get more full props. That's kind of the issue with having 2 games as well. For Puka Nacua, I feel like we could be fine betting the over as long as he is still in that same role. The thing with it is, like, Sean McVay has been really good at his offensive scheme. It's like you would think that teams would be able to kind of stop or hinder their production to Puka, and maybe in game 3, defensive coordinators will start to figure that out. But I just don't see that happening. And so to me, I do think there's a possibility where we could just continue to run out that stack we've been running out, or that you wish you were running out. I haven't really ran out that stack. Matthew Stafford for over passing yards then. And guys, he has been throwing the ball a ton. Like, Kyren Williams has been going off, but he's been going off on limited carries, like 15 carries per game. And Matthew Stafford has just been launching the football. 55 pass attempts last week, and I think this game has the chance to be a shootout, and even 38 pass attempts against Seattle. Now, they were ahead in that game. They didn't need him to pass the football that much. I think we can expect him to throw around 40 times in this game. And with that being said, are we getting any pass attempt props on him? Yeah, we are. Bet the over pass attempts. I like that one, actually. That's going to be one of my favorite ones. But what I was trying to say is that it does correlate. I would say you could do Stafford over passing yards. You could do Tutu Atwell over passing yards. And then you could also do Puka Nacua over passing yards as well. On the flip side of that, we do have the Bengals. T. Higgins, once again, not getting that many props for him just yet. Could go with this one. I wish we were getting more props for T. Higgins. Same thing with Jamar Chase. The reason why we're not, obviously, is going to be the factor of Joe Burrow being active or not. Obviously, that's going to decrease how good of plays they are, right? More for DFS and really for their production, but I do expect them to play. And guys, through 2 games, like, T. Higgins has been targeted heavily, 20 targets thus far, and I don't see that changing. So I'm very curious as to what line we get on him. Like, is it going to be 5.5? Is it going to be 4.5? Is it going to be 6.5 for his receptions total? And this LA Rams defense is one that you can pass the football on, so I'm probably going to be smashing some overs there for T. Higgins. And then the question becomes whether or not we do it with Jamar Chase. I don't know, it kind of feels like it's one or the other somewhat. Now, the targets have been there for him as well. Like, you could easily run out a game stack. This is going to be an appealing game. I said on the top end that this was going to be one of my favorite games to target, kind of like that Minnesota Chargers game where you could just bet a bunch of the overs and hopefully the game goes ham. I could see that happening here, but without having those props just yet, unfortunately, as I'm recording this, I can't really give you guys those ones. And then for what it's worth, I do want to touch on some of the Philly players as well, and then Chris Godwin and also Mike Evans. So I said at the start of the year, there should never be a situation where we are really getting a vast difference between Smith and AJ Brown in terms of any of their ones, in all honesty. We have seen that come back a little bit more. And for me, I probably just don't want to touch either of them just right now with them finally figuring that out. And I see no reason to really force that in there. I will say with Smith and his receptions prop, I feel like he has a decent chance of getting 5 receptions in this game, although that's not going to be a good EV bet. All right, so through 2 games, the Philadelphia Eagles have really kind of struggled against inside routes, and which player is probably going to be running more inside routes for the Tampa Bay? Well, Trey Palmer, one, Cade Otton, another one. We already mentioned Cade Otton, but it's going to be Chris Godwin, and he really hasn't had an explosion game just yet. He's been very solid thus far, like he always is, and I just kind of see this being the perfect spot for him to really go out and have a good game. Now, I'd rather go the receptions prop. We're not getting that just yet, and then for what it's worth, like you could do targets prop as well, but I would rather just do, like, if we get 5.5 receptions, I'd rather do 5.5 receptions. And given the targets that we're getting, I'm guessing that's going to be the line if we get that. And also kind of given the fantasy score that we're getting, it kind of correlates there. But you could do receiving yards. That'd be the next best one that I like there. Obviously, if we're going with Baker Mayfield as well for over fantasy score, we probably would want to attach another pass catcher. And to me, that would be Chris Godwin rather than Mike Evans. Although, because Baker hasn't really, it's weird. Like, he hasn't looked that good if you're watching it. He has kind of just been letting Mike Evans win, which is not a bad idea because he's a player that can win. We're just tossed up to Mike Evans and he goes out and wins. Not a terrible strategy. And once again, Eagles have struggled defensively. So there is a staggering opportunity with Baker Mayfield. I'm just not personally taking it, and the data doesn't like it as well. Like with Chris Godwin, we can see that they're telling us under fantasy score is going to be the way to go. With Mike Evans, maybe over receiving yards. That's going to be a much better bet though there on underdog if you're doing that bet. All right, so let's go ahead and get into my bet of the day for Monday night for the 2 Monday night games. And guys, I should mention, I really wish we were getting some Kyren Williams props. I feel like there could be an edge there because it's been the Puka Nacua show. He's been getting all the hype, even in fantasy season-long leagues. Like Kyren Williams has been dominating. Tutu Atwell has been dominating, but all the talk is Puka Nacua, even though those 2 other players have really had awesome fantasy week. All right, so just looking at it, guys, I went through the process of this slate, and this Matthew Stafford prop is one that I think makes the most sense. Just given the game, it is a game that's supposed to stay close. Thus, I just think we're going to see Matthew Stafford continue to throw the ball a lot. Then we're just using the 2 best bets that we have available on the slate. Now, if we do get more receiving props, because we're just not really getting them between the Rams receivers and the Bengals receivers, like I gave you my thoughts on those, my expectations for those. I may or may not be doing another video tomorrow in the afternoon. It won't get that many views if I do it, I know that, but at the same time, I do think we could be putting our best foot forward, and my guess is that some of these props might not be there because I do feel like we are gaining an edge. So that's going to be all for this video. Just a reminder, if you guys want access to the fantasy optimizer sheet here or the sportsbook screen on ODDSJAM, that is available in the link in the description below. Use the promo code 905 to get 25% off. If you guys want access to the 905 cheat sheet, we have a bunch of sports available. I'm really banking on this Jaylen Warren EV prop to hit tonight. That's one of the ones that I referenced earlier that I need to hit. Once again, don't need to hit, but would really like it to hit, as well as the Cade Otton one. I basically have 3. I need Calvin Austin, Jaylen Warren, or Cade Otton. I need one of those 3 to hit to have a profitable week. So we'll see. They probably won't all hit. I probably should have hedged it a little bit. And then lastly, guys, just real quickly on this as well. I know it's a 3-leg bet. That's unfortunate. To me, we had 3 really good bets, and I just didn't want to tag on 2, 1, or 3 more bets because I didn't have as much faith in those. You could do Baker. You could do Matthew Stafford pass catchers. You could do those ones if you chose to do so. All right, that's going to be all for this video. If you guys want access to those tools, make sure to be clicking the links in the description below. Please give a like and subscribe. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.